one of my videos. This one is for writing a decimal as a percent. This will help you out with both a con and an IXL lesson that has you doing this. Some of them are combined and some of them are separate. But in order to write a decimal as a percent, you need to understand that percent is out of 100. That if you can understand the hundredths place value in decimal numbers, if you understand where place value is and where the hundredths is, and then rewrite a decimal as a fraction with a denominator over 100. It needs to be over 100. So that's going to be the key there as we rewrite these. It always has to be out of 100 because percent is out of 100. So let's go ahead and look at our first example here. So on this first one we have 37 hundredths. So we're going to write this decimal below as a percent. And again, remember percent is out of 100. So 37 hundredths is the way we'd read this decimal. So the 7 is in the hundredths place, and we can just write this, since we read that as 37 hundredths, that is just 37 out of 100. That's just what it means. And since we know 37 out of 100, that's percent is out of 100, that just goes to 37%. Let's look at another example here. So on this one, we have 932 thousandths. Now this one isn't like the other one. It isn't to the hundredths place. So we can't just go right. Well, we could just go right in the hundredths, but we got to make sure we have it in the right. There's going to be a decimal in our percent. So the key is identifying where the hundredths place is. And the hundredths place is where the 3 is at. So that means we're going to have a decimal after the 3 when we put it in a fraction over 100. So we have 93.2 hundredths. That's the way we could do it. We could have wrote it as 932 thousandths, but we need it over hundredths because we want to write it as a percent. So we need to think of that as 93.2 hundredths. And if you notice on both these, that decimal is just moving 2 places each time. And so that's a shortcut you can think about. But really what we're doing is we're writing the fraction in terms of a hundredths. And once we get it written as a hundredths, we can go right to a percent. But the key is that decimal is just moving to the right in 2 places there. So we have 93.2%. Okay, let's look at a different one here. So again, we have 56 thousandths. Again, we need to identify the hundredths place. And the hundredths place is the 5, so that means we're going to need to get that decimal to after the 5 if we want to write that over 100. So we have 5.6 over 100, which gives us 56%. So knowing where to put that decimal, if we have numbers after the hundredths, we put the decimal after the hundredths, and then just write as a percent. Notice that is just moving that decimal again, because that's what it requires to write that over 100. Okay, let's look at this one now. This one's a little bit different because this is 1 7/10. We don't have a hundredths place at all. So we think about that, but remember, we can always add a 0 after the decimal. It doesn't change the place value. So now this becomes 1 70 hundredths. And now we do have a hundredths place, so we can identify that. So we have 1 70 hundredths. So we can just write that as 170 over 100. And that would be 170%. And again, that decimal has just moved 2 places to the right. So that's the way we change these decimals to a percent. Now once you're doing this, once you get good at this and understand this idea, we're writing it as a fraction over 100. A lot of times people just skip and just go right from the decimal to the percent by just moving it 2 places to the right, moving that decimal, and that's okay. As you get doing these, just really remember what we're doing is we're writing it as a fraction out of 100. All right, let me know if you have any questions. Have a good day. Bye.